Canterbury, welcome.
What about all those people who live in New York?
Kia ora koutou, ko Anne Scott tōku ingoa. I'm here speaking on behalf... Can I start? Yes. Sorry. I'm here speaking on behalf of Spokes Canterbury. I'm going to zoom through this presentation because I really would like to have some discussion. So I have put in the vision for Christchurch and how cycling sort of fits into it, but I'm not going to go into it because it takes too long. But what I will say is that cycling can be practical, it can be fun, it can be healthy, both mentally and physically, but only if people feel that they're safe. So I'd just like to say that reducing speed is one of the key ways that you can make cycling safe within the city. There will never be a cycleway, a separated cycleway on every street in the city. When the speed is reduced, things happen. We are doing things right. I was interested about the last speaker because actually we've built cycleways and we have come. There were about 10,000 cyclists' journeys across the Antigua Street Bridge, so I'm not quite sure why he didn't see any. But anyway, so we are doing, we're continuing to deliver the cycleways. We're enhancing the cycling in the centre city, which is great, helped by slow speeds. And we've done things like the Hagley Park path widening, which is absolutely great. And there are a whole lot of other things that are sort of happening in the space. What we need, though, is we need joined up destinations. So we have a lot of resources that go a certain place and then don't go others. So there's a picture there of Northcote Road. This is the 700 metres between the QET Drive cycleway and the Northern Arterial. And there's 5 schools in this area, and there are a lot of school children using this at 9, before 9 and around about 3 p.m, and it's just unsafe. Safer speeds, particularly around schools. We need maintenance of the paths and cycleways. Our cycleways are, they're starting to be used a lot, and so there is more maintenance that's actually required on them. And we need increased capacity to deliver infrastructure from the council. I think the SURF funding highlighted that we have a limit in capacity, and it's really sad to turn down money from the government because we don't have the resources. And resources take time to put into place. Training up people who have this kind of expertise when every other council in New Zealand wants them for the same reason, we need to think about that really carefully. There are gaps. You can see in the cycleways things that there are major gaps in the northeast and northwest of the network. The wheels to wings is really important because it fills an important gap in the northwest. Some infrastructures also reduce reaching capacity. The Hospital Bridge, for instance, and the Deans Avenue crossing, it's getting to the point where at busy times it's really hard to get across. And we need to start thinking about planning for the next decade. Because the cycleways have actually taken sort of 13 years to put into place. We're not quite there yet, but it takes about 5 years from the beginning of the thought to the start of the planning of any cycleway, and so now's the time to think about actually, what do we want to do next? So I've zoomed through this so fast because I realise the time goes really quickly, but I'd like to answer any questions that people would have.
Okie Yanni, please.
I mean, in your submission, and thank you for your submission, you talk about enhancing cycling in the city centre, but then you've also given us examples where in the suburbs we've got really inadequate cycling infrastructure. So are you able to give us a sense of your view about whether we're spending too much in the central city at the expense of the suburbs, or whether you would like us to reprioritise? Because you also mentioned the SURF funding as well, which is a classic example where anyway, I'd be interested in your thoughts on how we prioritise the local schools, the local stuff in the communities versus the huge amount of money that's being spent in the central city.
I think a bit of both. I think the central city is becoming really successful in terms of what we're doing in that space. I think there are opportunity things like the tikaha, for instance. I mean, getting that right before we actually open the stadium will have a really huge benefit to the city. And so I see that kind of as essential funding. I think also, but I also acknowledge that there are gaps in our networks in various places, and like the Linwood and the New Brighton and areas like that. We've got to make sure that there's a balance between what we're spending in the centre city and what we're spending in other places.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you for your submission.
Thank you.
Okie doke. Yvonne, please.